Hi everyone, Mikey here. Just wanted to give you a brief introduction to this next video, which is about abstract expressionism and how it became adopted as a symbol of freedom of expression in general, and how the following trend, pop art, was a questioning of that, an interrogation of that idea of expression as something unbounded and active, splashy and messy, and they returned us to this idea of using symbols and narrative. So yeah. Hi. Yeah, so what I think Mikey means over to Mikey, that abstract expressionism and all these spontaneous marks became a symbol in themselves, and they were no longer spontaneous. They were just as symbolic as the symbols of pop art that were used to counteract it. So here we go. Okay, so good. Hope you enjoy it, and it inspires you to make some great work of your own. Hope you're all happy and well. So we hope, and speak to you soon. So we hope. So we hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
This is a story about freedom of expression and how an idea of this may not be quite what it seems. It's a story of how European artists and Bauhaus lecturers fleeing Hitler's National Socialism shaped this idea of creative freedom in every part of popular culture today. They stole the Promethean fire from the modern European art and took it to America, where it blazed even more brightly. So today, when a car manufacturer wants us to see the freedom of expression in its latest model, it has to create a Jackson Pollock-style performance action painting the size of a football pitch. The star of this new art is New York. Central to this story, New York, the melting pot, where the émigré artists set up and shared progressive ideas with American artists. The émigré, someone fleeing political peril, has shaped our idea of personal freedom and expression. This was a time when personal experience and free-flowing ideas were valued. Art and poetry mingled in search of new meanings. Today, we immediately recognize the hipster style of the beatnik as something that communicates this energy of personal freedom and creative free form, free from the strictures of the previous generation and their mistakes. Here we see modern pop singers Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus both experimenting with a beatnik look. Fashion shoots, too, often turn to this studied cool. This was a time in New York in the 1940s and 50s that saw the artist become a viable career option. This was Barnett Newman's ambition. Gone was the idea of the European artist never selling anything and dying of tuberculosis in a garret. The gallery became the cool, energized commercial realm that we recognize today. So resonant is this primordial language of abstract expressionism that when a designer adopts it, we need no explanation or introduction. It's as if we've always known it. Here we see Steve Klein going back to the Bauhaus idea of human machine to create action textile performance for the Alexander McQueen Spring-Summer 2009 collection. Spatters are routinely returned to as a means of expressing free expression. You don't even need to be an artist to look creative. And so, with the Nazis defeated, America entered the Cold War with its new enemy, the USSR. One of their primary weapons was the promotion of an idea of rugged individual freedom of expression. And this was found in Abstract Expressionism. Here we see Coke, which, like America wants to teach the world to sing, Coke dressed up as action painting, freedom of expression. But it wasn't a straightforward transition to this new form of expanded European art, an art that made the most of the vast American landscape. There were other artists too, like Grant Wood. American regional art sought to keep things local and objected to the pretentious European art, preferring a studied devotional art of the early Renaissance. Grant Wood won £500 for this painting of American Gothic, which toured the country promoting an idea of American puritanical art, of and from the land. Remember, this is also another response to the hardships of the Depression of the 1930s. It was painted, however, just a few years after Rodchenko had declared how he had killed painting with this pure color yellow, and it demonstrates just how far American artists sought to distance themselves from the sophistry of European art. The New York School, as Abstract Expressionism is sometimes called, had other ideas, and with the arrival of the émigré, the European ideas exploded into the vastness of America. Not all abstract expressionism was always abstract or always expressionist, but it took central ingredients from ideas such as German expressionism and surrealism to create a new art that was relevant to the new atomic age. One of the greatest émigrés to enter America, and perhaps the most influential, in that he was the first to really use drips, spatters, and accidents, was this man, Arshil Gorky, an artist who had suffered like no other, coming from Armenia, where he witnessed genocide and the starvation of his own mother. His art took the musical qualities of Bauhaus lecturer Kandinsky and fused them on a much larger scale with soul and personal memory and anguish. This is Franz Klein's studio. In fact, it's Franz Klein's painting of his studio, a beautiful composition, but he wanted something more, something relevant to a new urban age. and so he decided to project his small drawings from scraps on phone book and paint them on a huge scale. And these turned into a collision of letter forms, calligraphy, and urban structures. They are, however, a combination of forward planning and spontaneity. Here we see Robert Motherwell, philosopher, painter, poet, in his studio. He's thinking. Abstract Expressionism needed a lot of thinking and writing between painting. This was to stop people thinking it was merely wallpaper or decoration. The easel, however, seen on the right of this photo, was becoming an old-fashioned European idea. And so, in the final act of stealing the fire from European art, Jackson Pollock created work entirely created by pouring and dripping onto the canvas, now placed on the floor, enabling him to become lost in the vast landscape of both the canvas and America itself. Pollock's orange head, top left, illustrates perfectly how he roved tirelessly around art history in search of a unique voice. We see Goya, Saturn devouring his son, Edvard Munch, the scream, using the resonant, echoing-like patterns of the canvas to demonstrate torment and confusion. And bottom left, Picasso's Weeping Woman, the grand themes of anguish and personal torment. Pollock painted this painting, Going West, and it demonstrates his affinity to the pioneer spirit, heading into the unknown, moving west across America into the vast landscape. It has the vortex of his later spatter paintings, but it is obviously not abstract and still retains some of the regional qualities of Grant Wood's American Gothic. Eventually, spurred on by his wife, Lee Krausner, Pollock leapt into the void and became the art of free expression incarnate, thus escaping Picasso's shadow. Someone once said to Pollock, "There is no nature in your painting. Art must have nature." To which Pollock replied, "Bleep nature. I am bleeping nature." And as you can see, the fractal patterns of his work closely map nature itself. Like the Surrealists, abstract expressionists were drawn to ideas of the unconscious. But theirs was not a seething mass of personal neurosis, as the Surrealists had been, but theirs was a universal void where grand themes of pain, love, and death could be played out. Mark Rothko initially used a metaphor, the metaphor of the New York subway, where we all descend and become united in a mind at large. Eventually, due to frustrations and his inability to get the response he wanted, he purged his paintings of all signifiers and narrative in favor of the simple expression of the complex thought. These paintings were initially commissioned for the Seagram restaurant. Pollock, however, realized that placing them in this commercial position would undermine the effect of entombment that he wanted to have on the viewer. You might even call this enwombment. He wanted to return them to a state of dawn, buried. And this is why you can see them today at London's Tate Modern. Eventually, with all push and pull, artists move on and return to order. There are parallels here, of course, with the Apollonian Dionysian move from light to dark. Here we see an advert explaining that process. We've got turning confusion into order down to a fine art. It presents the comic book style of pop art as order and abstract expressionism as a primordial chaos. Roy Lichtenstein drew a line under abstract expressionism. Here we see his machine-made symbol of a spontaneous mark called brushstroke. It is pure forward planning. And so, today a designer is free to use all of the things that came before the free expression of abstract expressionism and the New York School, and combine them with the comic book pixels of the pop art that came afterwards, and mingle it too with the primordial expression of abstract expressionism itself. Here we see the spring-summer collection of Mihari Yasuhiro from 2013, where there is a direct connection to the early primordial marks of Pollock as he sought to escape Picasso's shadow. The body of its canvas reminds us again of its roots in the Bauhaus. Here we see Raf Simons' Ruby Sterling Autumn-Winter 2014 collection, and a later incarnation of Pollock with the full-blown pouring style on a yellow duffel coat.
And so to briefly finish up, we've had this push and pull between abstract expressionism and pop art, which are both paradoxically symbols of American free enterprise, and both derive from this kind of Bauhaus combination of expression and a blueprint. And in this 2015 mood board for the Bauhaus fashion trend, we even have the cutout head of Walter Gropius included in the collage. He was the first director of the Bauhaus, as if his presence looking out at the viewer would have some magical talismanic quality, summoning up that Bauhaus spiritual quality of creative felt understanding.